Imagine being a farmer one day and commanding an empire the next. That's exactly what happened to Xiao, who went from tending crops to becoming the most powerful man in Ninghai City after rescuing a billionaire CEO from terrorists. But saving the CEO was just the beginning. As the Song family showered Xiao with gratitude and resources, dark forces were already plotting against him. What the terrorist kidnappers didn't know was that they weren't dealing with an ordinary farmer. They were challenging the future, heavenly strategy general, who would shake the foundations of power throughout the region. The captors weren't paying attention to the dusty road leading to the abandoned warehouse. Why would they? Their focus remained fixed on the prestigious hostage before them, Song Janine, CEO of the Song Group, and one of Ninghai City's most powerful figures. The terrorists had planned this operation meticulously, choosing a remote location where Song's security detail couldn't reach him. What they hadn't accounted for was the lone figure approaching on foot. Xiao walked with the unhurried gait of someone without purpose or urgency. His weathered clothes and calloused hands suggested a lifetime of agricultural labor. A simple farmer, perhaps lost or confused. The armed men barely spared him a glance as he drew closer. Even Song Janine, bound to a chair with a split lip and bruised face, only registered mild confusion at this unexpected intrusion. "Hey, this area is restricted," one captor finally called out, his tone more annoyed than alarmed. Xiao stopped, tilting his head slightly. "Sorry, just looking for my missing goat." His posture remained relaxed, shoulders slightly hunched, the very picture of harmless rural simplicity. What happened next defied explanation. As the nearest armed guard approached to escort him away, Xiao's entire demeanor transformed. The slouch vanished, his eyes sharpened. In a fluid motion that seemed impossibly fast, he disarmed the first terrorist, using the man's own momentum to send him crashing into a second guard. The warehouse erupted into chaos. 3 armed men charged simultaneously. Xiao moved through them, like water flowing around stones. Each strike landed with devastating precision, a pressure point in the neck, a calculated blow to the solar plexus, a swift kick behind the knee. No movement wasted, no hesitation. Song Janine watched in stunned silence as his captors fell one after another. This wasn't random brawling or even military combat training. The movements carried the refined precision of ancient martial disciplines, thought lost to time. Xiao's hands formed positions that Song had only seen in historical scrolls from his family's private collection. The crane's wing, defensive stance, the 5 elements strike sequence, techniques that hadn't been witnessed in open combat for generations. Within minutes, 7 armed terrorists lay unconscious or immobilized. Xiao stood unharmed, his breathing only slightly elevated. The transformation was so complete that Song wondered if he'd imagined the farmer who had walked in moments earlier. Who are you?" Song managed, still bound to the chair. Xiao's expression returned to its previous benign state as he approached and began untying the CEO's restraints. "Just a farmer who happened to be passing by. No farmer moves like that." Song rubbed his wrists as the ropes fell away. "Those techniques, I've only seen them in ancient manuscripts. The ghost shadow steps, the eagle claw precision strikes. They've been lost for decades. You have quite the imagination, sir." Xiao helped the billionaire to his feet with surprising gentleness. "We should leave before they wake up." As Xiao turned to lead them toward the exit, his worn jacket shifted slightly, revealing a mark on his upper arm, a scale-like pattern that seemed to shimmer despite the warehouse's dim lighting. Song froze, his eyes widening in recognition. "The dragon scale," he whispered. "I've only heard stories." Xiao quickly adjusted his clothing, concealing the mark. "It's just an old scar." But Song Janine had built a corporate empire through his ability to recognize valuable assets. Whatever Xiao claimed to be, his fighting prowess and that distinctive mark told a different story. This was no coincidence, no random encounter. "My security team will be searching for me," Song said, studying his rescuer carefully. "They'll be here soon, but before they arrive, I'd like to make you an offer." Xiao's expression remained neutral. "I don't need a reward." "Not a reward? A partnership." Song's voice took on the commanding tone that had closed billion-dollar deals across boardroom tables. "Someone with your talents could be valuable to the Song family." And in return, you would have access to resources few people in Ninghai could imagine. I'm just a simple farmer, Xiao insisted, though his eyes revealed a calculation that contradicted his words. Song smiled thinly, touching his bruised face. The people who arranged this kidnapping won't stop. They want me dead and my family destroyed. This is just the beginning. For the first time, genuine emotion flickered across Xiao's face, a hint of curiosity. And what would you expect from me? Protection, primarily, and perhaps your insight on certain matters. Outside, the wail of approaching sirens signaled the arrival of authorities. Song's expression turned urgent. The world you're about to step into is more dangerous than those thugs you just dispatched. Ninghai City appears civilized on the surface, but beneath that veneer, power struggles rage between families with centuries of history. My enemies won't send amateur kidnappers next time. Xiao remained silent, his eyes distant, as though calculating variables in an equation only he could see. Why me? He finally asked. Song gestured to the unconscious captors surrounding them. I think that's fairly evident, but more importantly, his voice dropped to barely above a whisper. The dragon scale mark you bear. It connects to legends my grandfather told me. Legends about warriors with abilities beyond ordinary men. Xiao's eyes narrowed slightly, the only indication that Song's words had struck a nerve. The CEO continued, whatever brought you to Ninghai, whatever you're really seeking, an alliance with the Song family will only help your cause. We have connections throughout the city that stretch back generations. Information, access, resources. The sirens grew louder. Time was running short. A simple yes or no will suffice, Song pressed. After what seemed like an eternity, Xiao gave a barely perceptible nod. Yes, something that might have been relief crossed Song's face. Then from this moment forward, you're under the protection of the Song family, and we are under yours. As security personnel and police flooded into the warehouse, Song straightened his torn designer suit and whispered one final warning to his new ally. Remember this, Xiao. In Ninghai City, nothing is as it appears. Not the people, not the power, and certainly not the past. Behind Song Jianen's cryptic warning lies a family dynasty that controls vast swaths of Ninghai City. The Song family isn't merely wealthy. They're institution builders, whose name adorns everything from the tallest skyscraper downtown to the city's most prestigious medical center. As one of the legendary four great families, their influence extends beyond corporate holdings into the very fabric of political power that governs daily life in Ninghai. Yet wealth and influence create enemies. The bulletproof sedans and private security details suddenly make sense when you understand the gravity of the threats circling the family in recent weeks. 3 assassination attempts, 2 corporate sabotage incidents, a mysterious fire at their secondary headquarters. Someone powerful, has declared shadow war on the Songs. I watch as Song Jianen's town car pulls into the family compound, a sprawling estate nestled behind walls that would make medieval castle designers envious. The security protocols are military-grade, retinal scanners, AI-driven surveillance, and guards who move with the precision of Special Forces veterans. All this protection, yet Janine sought out Xiao specifically. My grandfather built this dynasty from a single textile factory, Song Janine explains, as we walk through a gallery displaying 4 generations of family portraits. Now we control 17% of Ninghai's economy. Banking, technology, shipping, healthcare, the foundations of modern society. His voice drops to a whisper. But power attracts jealousy, and old mistakes come back to haunt you. Those mistakes apparently have a name. See Shando. Jianen reveals that 20 years ago, Shando was his closest friend and business partner until a catastrophic falling out drove them apart. I thought he was dead, Jianen says, his fingers absently tracing a pattern on his desk. But the attacks bear his signature. Methodical, patient, always striking where we least expect it. The family's vulnerability becomes clearer when I meet Song Yinggu, Jianen's granddaughter and heir apparent to the Song Empire. Unlike her grandfather's cautious demeanor, Yinggu radiates defiance. Her Harvard business degree and 3 years running the family's technology division have given her confidence that borders on arrogance. Grandfather overreacts, she says, dismissively, when Xiao is introduced as her new security consultant. We have an entire department handling our protection. I don't need some farmer following me around. The tension between them is palpable. Yinggu views accepting outside help as admission of weakness, something the next generation of Song leadership cannot afford to show. Janine knows better. Years of corporate warfare have taught him that pride makes easy targets. The gala tonight will be your first test, Janin tells Xiao, as servants prepare formal attire for him. Every important family in Ninghai will be watching. First impressions matter here more than anywhere else in the world. The Ninghai Cultural Center glitters like a diamond under the evening sky. Limousines discharge passengers in a choreographed display of wealth and status. Inside, the city's elite circle each other like well-dressed sharks, their pleasantries barely concealing the currents of ambition flowing beneath. Xiao enters with the Song family, and the reaction is immediate. Conversations pause, glances become stares. The newcomer in their midst disrupts the carefully maintained equilibrium of high society. Who is this man? Why does Song Janine introduce him with such respect? The questions ripple through the crowd. The Jiang family, longtime rivals of the Songs, are the first to make their move. Their patriarch, Jiang Wei, approaches with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Song Janine, always full of surprises, introducing farmers to high society now? The insult is delivered with perfect politeness. Perhaps your new friend would like to tell us about this season's crops. The trap is set. Acknowledge the insult, and Xiao appears weak. Respond aggressively, and he confirms his lack of social graces. Either way, the Songs lose face, but Xiao does neither. Instead, he smiles and steps forward with perfect composure. I find that fertile soil and careful cultivation yield the best results, whether in agriculture or business partnerships. His voice carries just far enough for nearby conversations to halt. The Jiang shipping merger last quarter proved that, didn't it? Sometimes the fields we think will yield the most prove disappointingly barren. The reference to Jiang Wei's failed business acquisition, information that shouldn't be available to an outsider, lands with precision. Jiang's smile freezes as murmurs spread through the gathering. Xiao has countered without aggression, demonstrating both intelligence and inside knowledge while maintaining perfect etiquette. Song Janin watches with quiet satisfaction as Jiang Wei retreats, recalculating his assessment of this supposed farmer. Yinggu's expression shifts from dismissive to curious. Throughout the evening, Xiao navigates the complex social currents with remarkable skill. He speaks little, but observes everything: which families align, which avoid each other, which young heirs drink too much, which security details are vigilant versus ceremonial. He's mapping the power structure of Ninghai in real time. He's not what I expected, Yinggu admits to her grandfather as they watch Xiao effortlessly deflect another subtle interrogation from a curious family head. Where did you really find him? The question isn't where I found him, Janin replies. The question is why he allowed himself to be found. By midnight, whispers about Xiao dominate the event. Theories spread. He's a government agent, a foreign intelligence operative, a long-lost scion of a forgotten family. Everyone senses there's more to this man than appears on the surface, and in Ninghai's status-obsessed society, mystery equals power. The true test comes when the key family heir, drunk and emboldened by his entourage, directly challenges Xiao. My father says you're nothing but a bodyguard playing at being important, he slurs, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Prove me wrong, farmer. Show us what makes you special enough to stand among your betters. The room goes silent. The calculated insult demands a response. Even Song Janine tenses, uncertain how his new ally will handle such a direct provocation. Xiao's response is a masterclass in power dynamics. He simply looks at the young heir, really looks at him, with an intensity that seems to penetrate every defensive layer. He says nothing, does nothing, yet something in his gaze makes the color drain from the young man's face. I apologize for the interruption, the key heir stammers, backing away before turning to flee the confrontation he started. No threats, no posturing, just quiet, overwhelming presence. As the guests disperse at evening's end, Song Yinggu approaches Xiao directly for the first time. "I underestimated you," she acknowledges, "but I still don't understand why grandfather believes we need your protection specifically. What makes you different from the security teams we already employ?" Xiao considers her question carefully before answering. "Your security teams react to threats. I prevent them from materializing in the first place. And how exactly do you do that?" "By understanding that in Ninghai, battles aren't won with weapons," Xiao replies. "They're won with knowledge, relationships, and the ability to see beneath the surface. Your grandfather recognizes this. Soon you will too." These words about intelligence and perception would prove more prophetic than Xiao could have anticipated as he stepped into the Chang family's lavish cocktail party the following evening. The opulent mansion buzzed with Ninghai's elite, crystal glasses clinking against a backdrop of power conversations and strategic schmoozing. But amidst the sea of designer suits and evening gowns, one woman's gaze caught his attention immediately, and her reaction suggested she recognized him too. Changyi Chang, the eldest daughter of the Chang family empire, stood frozen across the room, her champagne glass suspended halfway to her lips. For a moment, time seemed to stop, as their eyes locked across the crowded space. Unlike the curiosity or disdain he'd faced from others, her expression held something deeper, a flash of recognition quickly masked by practiced indifference. "I don't believe we've been properly introduced," Xiao said, as he approached, extending his hand with measured confidence, "though something tells me you already know who I am." The whispers about his connection to the Song family had spread through Ninghai's elite circles like wildfire. Conversations hushed around them as guests pretended not to stare at this unusual interaction. Changyi's response was cool and calculated. "The farmer who plays bodyguard," she replied, her voice carrying just enough volume for nearby guests to hear. "Your reputation precedes you. Tell me, what brings someone of your background to a Chang family gathering?" The subtle emphasis on his supposed status wasn't lost on anyone within earshot. Several guests snickered behind raised glasses, but rather than responding with anger or embarrassment, Xiao simply smiled and reached into his jacket pocket. "I believe this explains my presence better than I could," he said, unfolding a yellow document and presenting it with a steady hand. The marriage certificate, faded but legible, silenced the room as Changyi's eyes widened in shock. The document clearly stated an engagement between Xiao and Changyi Chang, bearing the official family seals of both households. "This is absurd." Changyi's voice cut through the stunned silence. "I've never agreed to any engagement. This is clearly a forgery." Her hands trembled slightly as she thrust the document away from her. Within moments, the Chang family's security personnel surrounded Xiao. Their postures suggesting immediate removal was imminent. Chang Weilong, Changyi's father, pushed through the crowd, his face flushed with anger. "How dare you bring such a ridiculous claim into my home?" Chang Weilong's voice boomed across the now silent room. "Do you know who we are? The Chang family has stood for 15 generations in Ninghai. We don't engage our daughters to farmers." The last word was delivered with such contempt that several guests visibly winced. But Xiao remained unmoved, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the growing hostility around him. "This certificate wasn't drafted yesterday," Xiao explained, his voice steady, despite the tension. "It was signed by our grandfathers during the Great Famine, when such promises meant everything, when survival depended on honor and alliances." A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. Such arrangements weren't uncommon in that era, promises made during hardship that bound families together. But for someone of Xiao's apparent status to claim connection to the Chang dynasty was unprecedented. "My grandfather would never..." He began, but her words were cut short by a commanding voice from the entrance of the grand hall. "But I did, child." The crowd parted like a sea as Chang Shiwang, Changyi's 80-year-old grandfather and the true patriarch of the Chang Empire, made his way slowly toward the confrontation. His weathered face showed no surprise at the document, only a weary recognition. "The promise was made when our family had nothing but our name." The elder, Chang, said, his voice carrying the weight of decades. "During the war, when your farmer's grandfather saved not only my life, but the lives of 27 Chang family members." The revelation landed like a thunderclap in the room. Guests who had been smirking at Xiao's presumption moments before now stared in disbelief, reassessing the man before them. Chang Shiwang reached out with age-spotted hands to take the document, examining it with reverent care. "This seal is genuine," he confirmed, looking directly at his granddaughter. "The engagement was agreed upon as a matter of family honor, a bond between houses that stood together in the darkest times." Chang's face drained of color as she looked from her grandfather to Xiao and back again. "But, grandfather, we can't possibly." In traditional times, such arrangements were not merely personal matters, Chang Shiwang explained to the stunned audience. They were sacred agreements between families that transcended individual desires. This document represents a binding oath that has stood for decades. The power dynamic in the room shifted instantly. Guests who had been looking down their noses at Xiao minutes earlier now scrambled to introduce themselves, suddenly eager to forge connections with someone who had legitimate ties to the Chang dynasty. The social choreography was fascinating to watch, a perfect demonstration of Ninghai's true character. Across the room, Song Yinggu watched the unfolding drama with an expression that flickered between fascination and something that looked remarkably like jealousy. Having only just begun to see Xiao as more than her family's unusual protector, the revelation of a pre-existing engagement clearly complicated her emerging feelings. "The existence of this certificate changes things," Chang Weilong admitted reluctantly, his earlier hostility replaced by cautious diplomatic language. "However, times have changed. Surely we can reach some kind of arrangement that honors the spirit of the agreement, while recognizing modern realities." The underlying message was clear. They would acknowledge the debt, but find a way to nullify the engagement. Xiao nodded thoughtfully, seemingly unbothered by this transparent attempt to sidestep the commitment. "The certificate speaks to something greater than a simple marriage arrangement," Xiao observed. "It represents a historical alliance between our families during times of great need. Perhaps the nature of that alliance can evolve to suit present circumstances." This diplomatic response drew approving nods from many of the business-minded guests. Chang Shiwang studied Xiao with newfound interest, clearly seeing beyond the humble exterior to something more strategic. Changji, however, was not content with diplomatic ambiguity. "Let me be absolutely clear," she announced, her voice carrying across the room. "While I respect my grandfather and our family's historical obligations, I categorically reject this engagement. No piece of paper from another era will determine my future." Rather than appearing offended, Xiao smiled slightly. "Your honesty is refreshing, Miss Chang. I would never wish to enter a union where I'm not wanted." The social aftermath of Xiao's rejection of the Chang family's arranged marriage was merely the opening act in a far more consequential drama. While Xiao had gracefully navigated one crisis, an economic hurricane was making landfall at Song Group headquarters across town. The rejection of a powerful family alliance had triggered exactly what Song Jianan feared most: the beginning of open corporate warfare in Ninghai City. What happens when a seemingly ordinary farmer becomes the deciding factor in a billion-dollar corporate battle? The answer would shake Ninghai's elite to their core. Morning brought chaos to the Song Group's gleaming corporate headquarters. Investors were fleeing in droves, stock prices plummeting by the hour. The fallout from Xiao's conflict with the Qi family, one of Ninghai's most influential dynasties, had spiraled into a full-scale financial crisis. Phones rang incessantly as panicked shareholders demanded answers that nobody seemed to have. "This is a disaster," Song Yinggu whispered to her grandfather as they watched the trading screens bleed red. "We've lost 15% of our market value since yesterday alone." The situation deteriorated further when a crowd of agitated shareholders gathered in the main lobby, their voices echoing through the marble atrium. "We want our shares back!" they shouted, panic turning to anger. You've doomed this company by challenging the keys. Security guards formed a thin line between the angry mob and the executive elevators, but tension was building by the minute. Song Jianin and Yinggu stood alone at the balcony, overlooking the chaos, their faces masks of concern. The Qi family's influence ran deep in Ninghai. They controlled banking institutions, media outlets, and had politicians in their pockets. Taking them on meant facing enemies on every front. Where is that farmer of yours now? One board member sneered at Song Jianin. Perhaps he can grow us some money to replace what we're losing. As if summoned by the question, the main doors parted, and Xiao walked calmly through the crowd. Unlike the executives huddled nervously on the upper floors, he wore no suit, no tie, just simple clothes that somehow made him stand out more among the business attire. The crowd parted instinctively as he crossed the lobby, his expression revealing nothing as he surveyed the scene. He's here, Yinggu said, surprise evident in her voice. But what can he possibly do against this? Her grandfather merely nodded, watching as Xiao joined them at the balcony. You've arrived at an interesting moment, Song Jianin said, gesturing to the chaos below. Xiao didn't immediately reply. Instead, he pulled out his phone and made a brief call. It's time, was all he said, before hanging up. 15 minutes later, the impossible happened. Lin Yuan, the notoriously private CEO of Longhai International, Ninghai's largest corporation, walked through the doors of Song headquarters. The room fell silent immediately. Known as the underground business queen, Yuan had built an empire that dwarfed even the oldest family businesses in the city. She rarely made public appearances and never involved herself in other companies' affairs. Ms. Yuan, Song Jianin stammered, rising to greet her. This is unexpected. Not to everyone, she replied, glancing at Xiao with a familiarity that shocked the room. Without preamble, she announced her intention to form a strategic partnership with the Song Group, effectively placing the resources of Longhai International behind them. The shareholders who had been demanding refunds moments earlier now pushed forward with questions about the potential collaboration. How do you two know each other? Yinggu asked Xiao later, unable to hide her curiosity. Xiao's response was characteristically minimal. Sometimes the most valuable connections are the ones nobody sees. With Lin Yuan's backing, immediate disaster was averted, but the Qi family wasn't finished. Their next move targeted the upcoming auction for development rights to the East City Ecological Park, a project the Song family desperately needed to solidify their recovery. The development represented billions in potential revenue and would cement whichever company secured it as Ninghai's premier corporate entity. The auction room hummed with tension as representatives from every major company in Ninghai gathered. The Qi family's strategy quickly became apparent. They bid aggressively on every parcel, driving prices to astronomical levels. Their intent wasn't to win, but to force the Song Group to either withdraw or commit to financially ruinous bids. They're trying to bankrupt us, Yinggu whispered, as another Qi bid pushed the price up by 50 million. Even with Lin Yuan's support, we can't match these numbers. Song Jianin looked to Xiao, who had insisted on attending, despite his lack of formal business experience. What would you suggest? He asked. The room fell silent as Xiao stood. Until now, he had been a silent observer, studying the patterns of bidding with the same intensity he had once watched his opponents in combat. When he raised his hand to bid, the auctioneer called on him with visible surprise. 8.2 billion, Xiao stated clearly. Gasps echoed through the room. The bid was more than 2 billion higher than necessary, an amount the Song Group couldn't possibly justify. Yinggu grabbed Xiao's arm. What are you doing? We don't have that kind of liquidity. The Qi family representative smiled triumphantly. Their trap had worked. The farmer had overplayed his hand catastrophically. After a moment of stunned silence, the Qi representative raised his hand again. 8.5 billion, he announced, his voice dripping with confidence. Xiaoyu didn't counter. Instead, he sat down calmly as the auctioneer called once, twice, and finally closed the bidding. The Qi family had won the auction at a price nearly double the project's estimated value. You just let them win, Yinggu hissed, fury evident in her eyes. All that talk about strategy, and in the end, you handed them victory. But Song Jianin was staring at Xiao with dawning comprehension. No, he said slowly. He didn't. Later that evening, as the business channels reported on the auction madness, financial analysts began questioning the Key family's judgment. Their winning bid exceeded reasonable projections by over $500 million. Within hours, their stock had dropped 8% as investors questioned the decision. In the private dining room of the Song family compound, Xiao explained his strategy to a still-stunned Yinggu. They never wanted the development, he said, sipping tea calmly. They only wanted to force you into financial ruin. By bidding an outrageous sum, I gave them a choice. Let us have it at a price we couldn't afford, or take it themselves at an even more impossible price. You knew they would bid higher just to beat us, Song Jianan said, nodding with appreciation. Pride is expensive, Xiao replied, and the Key's pride just cost them $500 million for a project they never wanted. Meanwhile, tomorrow, we announce our partnership with Lin Yuan on a new development in West Ninghai that will generate twice the revenue at half the cost. Behind the triumphant partnership with Lin Yuan lurked a shadow world Xiao had hoped to leave behind. The business victory against the Key family was merely surface tension on a far deeper conflict about to erupt. In the quiet aftermath of their corporate coup, Xiao was reviewing documents in Lin Yuan's executive suite when he noticed something odd about her secretary Hling, a barely perceptible movement pattern that no ordinary office worker should possess. The realization hit him with cold certainty. The underworld hadn't been destroyed. It had simply gone underground, and now it had infiltrated the highest levels of Ninghai's corporate elite. That night, as Xiao returned to his temporary residence, the attack came swiftly. A shadow detached from the darkness, blade glinting in the moonlight as it arced toward his throat. Years of training took over as Xiao pivoted, the blade missing him by millimeters. In the dim light, he recognized his attacker, Hling, Lin Yuan's seemingly unassuming secretary. "You've lost your edge, Commander Hling," Xiao said calmly, blocking her second strike. The Crimson Blade technique was always executed with the left hand forward, not the right. Surprise flickered across Hling's face, quickly replaced by focused determination as she launched a barrage of attacks that would have overwhelmed most opponents. But Xiao wasn't most opponents. He matched her movements with practiced precision, neither advancing nor retreating. The fight moved through the shadows of the garden, a deadly dance invisible to the sleeping city around them. Finally, Xiao knocked the blade from Hling's hand and pinned her against a wall, his forearm across her throat. "Who sent you?" he demanded. Instead of answering, Hling's eyes fixed on something at Xiao's collar. His shirt had torn during their struggle, revealing the edge of the dragon scale mark. Her expression transformed instantly from determined assassin to shocked subordinate. "It can't be," she whispered, eyes wide. "The dragon scale of Yama." Xiao released her and stepped back, his expression darkening. Hling immediately dropped to one knee, head bowed. "Forgive me, Lord Yama. I didn't recognize you." "Get up," Xiao commanded, glancing around to ensure they remained unobserved. "That name doesn't belong to me anymore." "But the mark," Hling began, "is a reminder of a past I left behind," Xiao cut her off. "The underworld was destroyed 20 years ago." Hling rose slowly, her posture now deferential. "No, my lord. We were scattered, not destroyed. For 2 decades, we've been rebuilding our network, waiting for your return." Inside Xiao's apartment, Hling revealed the truth that shattered the careful life he'd constructed. The underworld organization, once the most powerful shadow force in Eastern Asia, had never truly disappeared. Instead, its commanders had infiltrated every level of society, from street vendors to corporate boardrooms. "We've been watching for signs," Hling explained. "When the dragon scale bearer returned, we knew our time would come again." "I never sought to return," Xiao said, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "That life ended when the purge began. Yet here you are in Ninghai, exactly where the prophecy said you would come." Hling's eyes gleamed with fanatic certainty. "You've already begun re-establishing power, aligning with the songs, challenging the keys, connecting to Lin Yuan. These are not coincidences." Asiu stared at her silently, memories washing over him, of a life he'd tried to bury beneath years of quiet farming. The title of Yama, Lord of the Underworld, had been a burden he never wanted to inherit. "Why did you try to kill me if you're so loyal to the organization?" he finally asked. "It was a test," Hling admitted. "If you could be killed by a single commander, you were not worthy to lead us in what comes next." "And what exactly comes next?" Hling's expression grew solemn. "The recovery of the Zanan scroll." The name sent a chill through Xiao's body. The Zanan scroll was legendary, even within the underworld. An ancient text said to contain secrets of power beyond modern comprehension. "The scroll is a myth," Xiao said, dismissively. "No, my lord. We have confirmation it exists and is hidden here in Ninghai." Hling's voice dropped to a whisper. "Its power is why you were called back. The scroll recognizes its master." As dawn approached, Hling revealed the underworld's intelligence. The scroll had been divided centuries ago for safety. One half had vanished completely, while the other was rumored to be in the possession of an ancient Ninghai family. "We believe Chang Shiwang holds half the scroll," Hling said. The pieces suddenly aligned in Xiao's mind. The marriage certificate that had seemed like an honorable arrangement between families during a time of famine took on new significance. His grandfather hadn't just saved the Chang family during the war, he had been tracking the Zanan scroll. "The certificate was never about marriage," Xiao murmured. "It was about maintaining access to the Chang family line." As morning light crept across the floor, Xiao faced an impossible dilemma. He had built relationships with the Song family based on mutual respect and a genuine desire to help them against their enemies. Now he had to balance that with a secret mission tied to his hidden identity, an identity he had rejected but could never fully escape. "What will you do, Lord Yama?" Hling asked, her use of the title making Xiao flinch. "For now, you will return to your position with Lin Yuan. Report only to me. Continue your observation, but take no action without my direct order." After Hling departed, Xiao stood at the window overlooking the awakening city. His carefully constructed life as a simple farmer lay in ruins, replaced by the weight of an unwanted destiny. The dragon scale mark on his skin seemed to burn now that its significance had been acknowledged. That afternoon, as Xiao met with Song Yinggu to discuss their next business strategy, he found himself studying her with new awareness. How would she look at him if she knew what he truly was? The lord of an underworld organization that had once controlled everything from gambling to assassinations throughout the region. "Is everything all right?" Yinggu asked, noticing his distraction. "You seem troubled since the auction." "Just considering our next steps," Xiao replied smoothly. "The Qi family won't take their humiliation lightly. Let them come," Yinggu said confidently. "With you guiding our strategy, we're prepared for whatever they throw at us." Her trust weighed on him like a stone. While she believed they were unified against the Qi family's corporate maneuvers, Xiao was now orchestrating a far more dangerous game beneath the surface, one that might eventually require him to betray her trust. That evening, Xiao arranged a seemingly casual meeting with Chang Shiwang at a traditional tea house. The elderly man arrived looking curious, but not suspicious. "An unusual invitation," Chang said, as he settled across from Xiao. "I assumed after my granddaughter's rejection you would avoid our family." "Some connections transcend a single generation's choices," Xiao replied carefully. "I've been reflecting on stories my grandfather told of the time your families were allied. He mentioned a family treasure, a scroll with unusual markings." Chang Shiwang's teacup paused halfway to his lips, his expression momentarily frozen, before returning to carefully practiced neutrality. "Old men tell many stories," he said dismissively, but his eyes had hardened, calculating. "Some are best forgotten." Chang Shiwang's dismissal hung in the air like poison, but what neither man realized was that loyalty in Ninghai City was as fragile as morning frost, and someone was already betraying them both. The scroll might have been Xiao's primary mission, but the web of deception spreading throughout the city threatened to engulf everyone in its path. In Ninghai, allies became enemies with a single whispered conversation, and the most dangerous betrayals wore the mask of friendship. The Song Group's headquarters hummed with tension as security personnel rushed through corridors, their usual disciplined calm replaced by urgent movements. 3 attempts on Song Yinggu's life in a single week, each one coming closer than the last. The pattern suggested something more coordinated than mere opportunistic attacks. Someone was testing defenses, probing for weaknesses. The security breach came from inside, Zhao said, spreading surveillance photos across Song Jianin's desk. Someone, with executive clearance, changed the rotation schedule, leaving a 15-minute window where Yinggu was exposed. The elderly CEO's hands trembled slightly as he viewed the evidence. Only 6 people have that level of access. 6 people I've trusted for years. The third photo revealed a familiar face entering a private club known for underworld connections. Chen Wentz, the Song family's closest business ally for over a decade, meeting with figures tied to key criminal enterprises. The betrayal struck like a physical blow. Chen had been at Yinggu's christening, had vacationed with the Song family, had stood beside them during every crisis. Xiao moved silently through the darkened finance district, trailing Chen Wentz from a careful distance. The man's behavior had grown increasingly erratic. Late-night meetings, encrypted calls, and now this clandestine meeting at the abandoned Ninghai shipping warehouse. Xiao needed confirmation before making his move. Inside, Chen knelt before a shadowy figure. The Song girl suspects nothing. When the time comes, I'll ensure she's exactly where you need her. Xiao tightened his grip on the support beam. This wasn't just betrayal. This was calculated destruction of the Song family by someone they considered family. The confrontation came the following day in Chen's private office, 40 stories above Ninghai's bustling financial district. 15 years with the Songs wasn't enough to buy your loyalty? Xiao asked, materializing from the shadows as Chen entered. The older man's hand jerked toward his desk drawer. Security will be here in seconds. No, they won't, Xiao replied calmly. The question is whether you'll still be breathing when I leave. Chen's composure cracked. You understand nothing about Ninghai. The Song family is finished. The Qi family's alliance with Admiral Michael Acer brings foreign money, foreign influence, that will crush anyone opposing them. Xiao's eyes narrowed at the mention of the Admiral, a name that shouldn't appear in this equation. You've chosen poorly, Chen, but you have one chance to make amends. Tell me about it. Sweat beaded on Chen's forehead. American military connections. Unlimited resources. He's been building relationships with the Qi family for years, positioning for something big. They want the Songs eliminated, and they want you dead, most of all. What Chen didn't realize was that Xiao couldn't expose him as an underworld operative without revealing his own connection to that same shadowy organization. This delicate balance forced Xiao to play a dangerous game of half-truths. Meanwhile, Song Yinggu had transformed from reluctant protectee to active partner. Her brilliant mind complemented Xiao's strategic thinking, creating a formidable team that was systematically dismantling the attacks against her family. But her growing feelings for him created complications neither had anticipated. You never talk about your past, she said one evening, as they reviewed security protocols. Sometimes I wonder if I know you at all. The question hung between them, layered with unspoken emotions. Her fingers brushed against his as she handed him a document, lingering a moment too long to be accidental. Xiao pulled away, torn between his growing attachment to her and the mission that had brought him to Ninghai. The Zanen scroll remained his primary objective, but protecting Yinggu had become personal in ways he hadn't expected. My past isn't something worth knowing, he replied, finally. What matters is who stands beside you when enemies close in. The real shock came from an unexpected quarter. During a private dinner with Lin Yuan, the underground business queen revealed knowledge she couldn't possibly possess. The Northwest training compound was beautiful in spring, she mentioned casually. The cherry trees along the eastern wall would bloom first. Xiao froze. The compound she described had been his childhood home, a secret facility where children with special potential were trained for specialized service. Only those who had lived there would know about those cherry trees. Who are you really? He demanded. Her smile held secrets darker and deeper than he'd imagined. Someone who has watched your progress for a very long time, Xiao. Or should I use your birth name? The one given before they took you for training? The revelation shattered Xiao's carefully constructed understanding of his mission. Lin Yuan wasn't merely a powerful CEO. She was connected to his origins in ways that suggested the scroll mission might be built on foundations of deception. The extent of the underworld's infiltration became clear as Xiao's investigation continued. The president of Ninghai Central Bank, underworld. The deputy mayor, underworld. The chief of emergency services, 3 precinct captains, and the director of the Port Authority, all placed in positions of power years ago, waiting for activation. Ninghai wasn't just experiencing isolated incidents of corruption. It was a carefully constructed house of cards, built by the underworld over decades. The realization struck Xiao with crushing force. He wasn't just hunting the scroll. He was standing at the center of a conspiracy that had been in motion since before his birth. Most disturbing was the growing certainty that information about his movements was reaching his enemies too quickly. Someone close to him, someone he trusted, was feeding intelligence to the opposition. But who? Song Jianan himself? Lin Yuan? One of the security team he'd personally vetted? The answer came in fragments. A phone conversation overheard by chance, a document bearing a familiar seal, a pattern of coincidences too precise to be accidental. Each piece, insignificant alone, formed a devastating picture when assembled. Xiao tracked the betrayer to an abandoned temple on Ninghai's outskirts. The ancient building, once magnificent, now stood as a crumbling monument to forgotten gods. The perfect meeting place for those who wished to remain unseen. Hidden among the shadows of massive stone pillars, Xiao watched as Chang Shiwang, the elderly patriarch who had confirmed his engagement to Chang'e, shuffled into the moonlit courtyard. The old man who had publicly acknowledged the family's debt of honor was here for a very different purpose. A hooded figure emerged from the darkness. "Is it done?" "Yes," Chang Shiwang replied, his voice stronger than the frail persona he presented in public. The boy suspects nothing. He believes the scroll is merely an object to be found, not the key to everything. And the song girl? A complication, but manageable. His feelings for her make him vulnerable. The revelation struck Xiao like a physical blow. Chang Shiwang, the man who had validated his place in Ninghai society, who had honored a decades-old promise, was actively working against him, manipulating both the engagement and Xiao's search for the scroll. The web of lies began to unravel at Mayor Wang's grand banquet. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over Ninghai City's elite as they mingled in the marbled hall, their laughter masking the tension that hung in the air like smoke. The most influential families had gathered, dressed in their finest, ostensibly to celebrate the mayor's anniversary in office. But whispers circulated through the crowd. An important announcement was coming, one that would shift the balance of power in their carefully constructed hierarchy. Xiao stood quietly near the edge of the room, observing the elaborate dance of politics and pretense. After Chang Shiwang's betrayal, he had come prepared for confrontation, though his face revealed nothing of his inner thoughts. The key family patriarch approached, flanked by representatives from 3 other powerful families, their confidence evident in every step. "Mr. Xiao," Key Junction announced loudly enough for nearby conversations to halt. "I believe your time in Ninghai has reached its conclusion." His voice carried across the room, drawing attention from every corner. "You've manipulated your way into our society long enough." The room fell silent as guests turned to watch the confrontation. Key Junction's allies formed a semicircle around Xiao, a physical manifestation of the coalition they had formed against him. "The Song family may have welcomed you," continued Key Junction, "but the rest of us have seen through your deceptions. A farmer who mysteriously possesses combat skills, a nobody who suddenly influences billion-dollar deals. Your games end tonight." Xia remained still, his composure unbroken, even as more family patriarchs joined Key Junction's side. The Wang family representative stepped forward, nodding in agreement. "We've consulted with each other," he said, gesturing to the assembled group, "and we've unanimously decided that you will no longer be permitted to operate in Ninghai City. Your interference in our affairs ends immediately." A murmur rippled through the crowd. For most present, this display of unity among typically competitive families was unprecedented. Song Yinggu started to move toward Xiao, but her grandfather placed a restraining hand on her arm, his eyes fixed on something happening at the entrance. The grand doors swung open. An elderly man in an impeccable traditional suit, entered, flanked by two younger assistants. Despite his age, he moved with deliberate purpose, his posture straight and unyielding. The crowd parted instinctively before him, conversations dying as he passed. "The Grand Preceptor," someone whispered, the words spreading through the room like wildfire. The man's gaze swept the gathering before settling on Xiao. The key family patriarch's expression faltered as the Grand Preceptor approached not him, but Xiao. To everyone's astonishment, the distinguished visitor bowed slightly. "General Xiao," the Grand Preceptor said, his voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence. "It has been too long since we last met. I trust your investigation of Ninghai City has been productive?" Qi Junction's face contorted in confusion. "General, what's the meaning of this?" The Grand Preceptor turned slowly, regarding Qi Junction with cold assessment. "You address the Heavenly Strategy General. Show appropriate respect." The revelation fell like a thunderbolt across the gathering. Several gasps punctuated the silence. The Heavenly Strategy Department was not just another government agency. It was the shadowy authority that distinguished between loyalty and treason throughout the Xia nation, an entity whose mere mention caused even the most powerful to tremble. "Impossible," breathed one of Qi Junction's allies. "The Heavenly Strategy General is a myth, a story to frighten children." "I assure you," the Grand Preceptor replied, "General Xiao's authority is quite real. He has been operating undercover in Ninghai City, assessing threats to national security and identifying those whose loyalties may be compromised." Zhao finally spoke, his voice different now, commanding, authoritative, without the careful humility he had displayed for months. "My mission required discretion. The Heavenly Strategy Department received intelligence suggesting that corruption had infiltrated the highest levels of Ninghai's power structure. I was dispatched to identify those responsible and determine the extent of the threat." The Qi family patriarch's face had drained of color. "This is absurd. You have no authority here. My family has stood in Ninghai for generations." "Your family," Xiao interrupted, "has been under investigation for 18 months. Your recent alliance with foreign interests, represented by Admiral Michael Acer, is of particular concern to national security." All around the room, the once confident faces of Ninghai's elite registered varying degrees of shock and fear. Those who had been most vocal in their opposition to Xiao now appeared physically ill. The Grand Preceptor produced an official scroll bearing the imperial seal. "By the authority granted to the Heavenly Strategy Department, General Xiao has been empowered to investigate and take whatever measures necessary to protect the interests of the Xia nation. This includes the authority to execute first and report later, should circumstances require immediate action." A terrible silence fell over the gathering. This revelation of authority was not merely political, it was existential. The power to execute without prior approval placed Xiao above even the judicial system itself. "But he's just a farmer," someone protested weakly from the back of the crowd. The Grand Preceptor smiled thinly. "The Heavenly Strategy Department operates through deception when necessary. What better cover than that of a humble farmer? General Xiao has spent years developing this persona, allowing him to move undetected through situations where a known official would never gain access." Mayor Wang, who had been watching the proceedings with growing alarm, stepped forward and bowed deeply to Xiao. "General, had I known of your true identity, the city would have extended every courtesy, which would have defeated the purpose of my investigation." Xiao finished for him. "Your ignorance was necessary, Mayor Wang, though I must say, your administration will require significant restructuring in the coming weeks." The shift in the room was palpable. Those who had sneered at Xiao minutes before now edged backward, avoiding his gaze. The powerful families who had united against him suddenly found reasons to distance themselves from Qi Junction and his allies. "The Heavenly Strategy Department's work is vital to maintaining order and authority in our nation," Xiao continued, addressing the entire gathering. "Those who have nothing to hide have nothing to fear. Those who have betrayed their oaths of loyalty, however." He left the sentence unfinished, but its impact was unmistakable. Qi Junction, his composure now completely shattered, attempted one final stand. "You can't simply walk in here and overturn generations of established authority." The Qi family, The Key family, Xiao cut in sharply, will be thoroughly investigated, beginning tomorrow morning, as will everyone who chose to stand with you tonight. Key Junction's laughter echoed through the hall, shattering the tension like glass. Investigate me? You fool! You have no idea who you're truly dealing with, or why my family has played this patient game for 3 generations. The mask of the defeated aristocrat slipped from his face, revealing something ancient and calculating beneath. With a subtle hand gesture that seemed innocent to most, Key Junction activated a sequence that would forever change Ninghai City. Throughout the banquet hall, waiters suddenly straightened their postures. Security guards discreetly reached inside their jackets. Even several guests from prominent families stood slightly taller, their expressions transforming from polite civility to focused determination. "Allow me to properly introduce myself," Key Junction announced, voice resonating with newfound authority. "I am the 3rd Grand Protector of the Underworld, heir to a legacy that your precious Heavenly Strategy Department thought they had destroyed decades ago." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The elite families, who moments ago had been smugly watching Xiao's confrontation with Key Junction, now shifted nervously. Their expressions cycled rapidly between shock, fear, and the careful calculation of which side would emerge victorious. Why would I, a man with everything, align myself with the underworld? Key Junction continued, pacing confidently across the marble floor. Because my family has been suppressed for years, despite our historical contributions to this nation, we've been relegated to mere observers, while lesser families received honors and positions that rightfully belong to us. His voice rose with generations of pent-up resentment. My grandfather helped build the foundations of modern Ninghai, yet your government erased his achievements from the history books. My father developed technologies that strengthened our national defense, only to be accused of treason when he sought fair compensation. With another subtle gesture, Key Junction seemed to trigger a second phase of his plan. Outside the grand windows of the banquet hall, distant explosions illuminated the night sky. The power grid in 3 districts simultaneously failed, plunging sections of the city into darkness. "Look outside," he commanded. "My people are everywhere. That quiet accountant who's processed your taxes for 15 years? My agent. The kindergarten teacher who's educated your children? Mine as well. The nurse who administered your father's medication last month? All loyal to me." Indeed, throughout Ninghai, seemingly ordinary citizens were revealing their true allegiances. A postal worker abandoned his route to unlock an armory hidden beneath a post office. A beloved baker closed her shop early, revealing a communications center behind her ovens. Sleeper agents, who had integrated themselves into everyday life for years, were now activating at once. Meanwhile, Xiao remained unnervingly calm. While others panicked around him, his expression betrayed nothing more than mild interest. He sipped his champagne slowly, studying Key Junction's every movement, cataloging each person who revealed themselves as part of the underworld network. "You don't seem concerned, General," Key Junction observed, his triumphant smile faltering slightly at Xiao's composure. "Should I be?" Xiao replied simply. This momentary exchange contained volumes. What Key Junction couldn't know was that Xiao's apparent passivity was his most dangerous state. By allowing the rebellion to unfold without immediate intervention, Xiao was gathering critical intelligence about the underworld's structure, communication methods, and key personnel. The elite families, witnessing this chess match between titans, responded predictably. The Wang family representative hurriedly approached Key Junction with assurances of their long-standing private support for his cause. 3 minor families openly pledged allegiance to the underworld, while others maintained strategic silence, waiting to see which way the power would ultimately flow. "This isn't merely about Ninghai," Key Junction revealed, warming to his moment of ascendancy. "What happens tonight is the first domino in a that will reshape the entire region." He gestured to a distinguished foreign guest who had remained quiet throughout Our international partners have substantial interest in seeing certain power structures realigned. The true scope of the conspiracy began to emerge. This wasn't a local power grab, but part of a coordinated effort involving interests seeking to destabilize the entire region. The Key family's grievances had made them perfect for external forces, hoping to gain influence over Ninghai's strategic position and resources. Admiral Acer is merely the public face of our foreign alliance, Qi Junction boasted. Our network extends much further, into corridors of power you can't imagine. Throughout this revelation, Xiao's expression remained unchanged, though his mind was racing. He now faced not just the Qi family, but also an entire underworld organization, the very one he was technically meant to lead as Lord Yama, and the foreign interests backing them. The complexity of the situation was exponentially greater than even he had anticipated. "I believe you've revealed enough, Junction," Xiao finally said, setting down his empty glass. "Though I appreciate your thoroughness, it saves me considerable investigative work." Qi Junction's triumphant expression faltered. "You still don't understand your position, do you? You're surrounded. Your authority means nothing when I control the actual mechanisms of power in this city." The banquet hall doors swung open dramatically, silencing Qi Junction mid-boast. Standing in the doorway were two figures that caused gasps throughout the room. Heling, Lin Yuan's secretary and underworld commander, entered first. Behind her came the supposedly dead Chen Wentz, looking very much alive and completely unharmed. "I believe you're mistaken about who controls what in Ninghai," Chen said calmly, walking toward Xiao and bowing respectfully. The blood drained from Qi Junction's face as he recognized the implications. "Impossible. You were eliminated." "Was I?" Chen replied with a thin smile. "Or perhaps General Xiao has been several steps ahead of your rebellion since before it even began." The truth dawned on everyone present. Xiao had anticipated this moment, placing his own agents within the underworld structure months or even years in advance. What Qi Junction believed was his moment of triumph had been engineered as a trap to expose the full extent of the underworld network. "The third Grand Protector of the Underworld," Heling announced formally, "has violated the ancient codes of our organization by allying with foreign powers against our homeland. This action requires judgment from the true authority of our order." All eyes turned to Xiao, whose casual demeanor had finally shifted to something more befitting his true station. The Heavenly Strategy General now stood revealed in his full authority, ready to confront not just a rebellious family, but an entire shadow organization that threatened national security. A shiver of anticipation ran through the assembled crowd as Xiao stepped forward to confront the underworld's true master. Lord Pluto emerged from the shadows, his weathered face betraying centuries of cunning. Unlike Qi Junction's theatrical display of power, Pluto moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had never needed to prove his strength. "The famous Heavenly Strategy General," Pluto's voice carried across the chamber without effort. "I've waited decades for this meeting. The dragon scale belongs to a true leader of men, not a government puppet." Xiao stood his ground, but even the most casual observer could see the mismatch. Pluto's movements were fluid, almost ethereal, as though the laws of physics bent around him. When he struck, it was with the force of a natural disaster. The first exchange left Xiao reeling. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth as he steadied himself against a pillar. This wasn't just a gap in skill. It was as though they existed in different realms of capability. "You see now," Pluto smiled, "why the scroll has been sought for generations. What you possess is merely potential. What I hold is mastery." From his robes, Pluto withdrew a fragment of ancient parchment, one half of the legendary Xinan scroll, its edges emitting an otherworldly golden light. The artifact seemed alive in his hands, responding to his touch with pulses of energy that distorted the air around it. "Your mentor sent you searching for this, didn't he? The ultimate treasure of the Yano lineage, containing secrets of reaching the peak of human potential." Pluto circled Xiao like a predator. "But he never told you the whole truth about your heritage." Xiao's eyes never left the scroll fragment. "Where is the other half?" "Closer than you think," came a voice from the entrance. Lin Yuan stood in the doorway, her normally composed demeanor replaced with steel determination. "My mother has protected it for 30 years. The revelation hit Xiao like physical force. The marriage arrangement, Chang Xiwang's machinations, Lin Yuan's unexpected appearance in his life, all had been about positioning the two halves of the scroll in proximity to each other, after centuries apart. "The scroll was divided for a reason," Lin continued, approaching slowly. No single vessel was worthy of containing its full power. Until now. Pluto's face twisted with rage. The daughter of Ming Yuan has no claim to the Yano legacy. Your mother stole what was rightfully ours. My mother was the last true Yano by blood, Lin replied calmly. She entrusted her half to me when signs of the underworld's resurgence first appeared. The room erupted into chaos as Pluto's lieutenants swarmed from concealed positions. Xiao found himself fighting not just for his life, but for control of both scroll fragments now in the open. Despite his authority as Heavenly Strategy General, this battle transcended government power. It was about something far more ancient. As the battle intensified, Xiao managed to reach Lin's side. We need to unite the fragments, she gasped, fending off an attacker. They were never meant to remain separate. Through the chaotic melee, Xiao glimpsed Chang Shiwang, observing from a balcony above. The old man's expression was unreadable, but there was no mistaking his focus on the golden parchments. The marriage contract, Xiao realized aloud. It wasn't about families uniting at all. It was about bloodlines, Lin confirmed. The Yano, Chang, and Xiao lineages, all connected to the scroll's original guardians. The contract was a fail-safe, ensuring the rightful heir would eventually emerge when the fragments needed to be united. Pluto's attacks grew more desperate as he sensed his prize slipping away. A particularly vicious assault sent Xiao crashing into a display case, shards of glass slicing through his clothing. For a moment, he lay stunned, blood pooling beneath him. You never had the strength to wield it anyway, Pluto sneered, advancing on Lin to claim her fragment. What does a bureaucrat know of true power? In that moment of near defeat, something unexpected happened. The fragment in Lin's possession began to pulse with increasingly bright energy. Across the room, its counterpart in Pluto's hand responded in kind, the golden light intensifying until it seemed to bend reality around it. It's responding to you, Lin called to Xiao, her voice urgent. The scroll chooses its guardian. With every remaining ounce of strength, Xiao lunged toward Pluto, not striking him directly, but reaching for the fragment he held. The moment his fingers brushed the ancient parchment, a shockwave of energy pulsed outward, knocking everyone in the vicinity to the ground. Everyone except Xiao himself. The fragment torn from Pluto's grasp floated of its own accord toward its counterpart in Lin's hand. As the two pieces neared each other, their light became nearly blinding, forming a bridge of pure energy between them. Impossible, Pluto gasped. The fragments haven't responded to anyone in centuries. Xiao stood at the center of the phenomenon, his wounds seemingly forgotten, as ancient characters from the scroll began to materialize in the air around him. With each passing second, they sank into his skin like living tattoos, leaving trails of golden light that gradually faded. The scroll doesn't just contain knowledge, Lin explained, watching in awe. It is knowledge, alive and aware, seeking its rightful inheritor. As the fragments finally came together in Xiao's hands, completing the ancient text, the transformation became undeniable. His movements acquired a fluidity that made his previous abilities seem clumsy by comparison. The very air around him seemed to part in deference to his presence. Pluto, recognizing the shift in power, abandoned his facade of control. This changes nothing. I've spent lifetimes mastering what you've just discovered. Experience trumps raw power. The underworld leader attacked with renewed fury, his techniques revealing centuries of deadly knowledge. But where Xiao had once struggled to defend himself, he now moved with preternatural awareness, as though he could see Pluto's attacks before they were launched. The scroll doesn't just enhance ability, Xiao spoke, his voice resonating strangely. It reveals understanding, the difference between knowing a technique and comprehending its essence. With movements that seemed to blur the line between physical and metaphysical, Xiao systematically dismantled Pluto's attacks. Each counter revealed not just increased speed or strength, but a fundamental understanding of combat principles that transcended training. Pluto's lieutenants watched in disbelief as their immortal leader found himself outmatched by someone who minutes earlier had been at his mercy. One by one, they began to retreat, sensing the inevitable. This is what the Yano lineage protected, Xiao said, advancing on Pluto. Not just power, but enlightenment. The scroll doesn't give strength. It removes the barriers to understanding what was always within reach. The unimaginable was unfolding across Ninghai City. As Xiao stood empowered by the scroll's ancient wisdom, Pluto's forces were executing their meticulously planned assault on the city. What should have been a swift, devastating takeover was instead meeting unexpected resistance at every turn. Pluto's confident smile gradually morphed into a perplexed frown as reports flooded in from his commanders throughout the city. "Sir, the power grid takeover has been neutralized. Someone at the utility company identified our agents before they could complete the override. The financial district lockdown failed. Security forces were waiting for our team as if they knew exactly when and where we would strike. Hospital supply chains remain intact. Our infiltrators were removed from their positions days ago without raising any alarms." The pattern was unmistakable. Somehow, the underworld's carefully orchestrated attack, years in the making, was being systematically dismantled. Pluto turned to Xiao, his eyes narrowing with the first glimmer of doubt. "What have you done?" he demanded, the golden light of the scroll fragment still illuminating his features. His lips curled into the slightest smile. "I've been in Ninghai for 18 months, Pluto. Did you think I spent all that time just waiting for you to make your move?" The truth dawned on Pluto with crushing clarity. While he had been focused on amassing raw power and numbers, Xiao had been playing an entirely different game, identifying vulnerabilities, positioning assets, and crafting contingencies that now sprung into coordinated action across the city. Throughout Ninghai, the underworld's advantage of surprise was being neutralized by a network that had been invisible until this very moment. The public transportation system, which they had planned to shut down, continued operating smoothly under the direction of a station manager who had been reporting to Xiao for months. The emergency broadcast system, which they had intended to use for spreading panic, remained under the control of technicians loyal to the Heavenly Strategy Department. "Your mistake was thinking this battle would be decided by who had the most soldiers," Xiao explained, his voice carrying an eerie calm. "But strategy isn't about numbers. It's about positioning. Every week since my arrival, I've been placing people in positions where they could be most effective when this moment came." The radio on Pluto's belt crackled to life with another frantic report. "Sir, Admiral Acer's forces have turned against us. They're blocking our retreat routes and disarming our teams throughout the Eastern District." The name sent a ripple of confusion through the room. Admiral Michael Acer, the foreign ally that Key Junction had so proudly claimed was supporting their cause, appeared to have switched sides at the critical moment. The answer came in the form of the Admiral himself, striding confidently into the chamber where Xiao and Pluto faced off. Instead of attacking Xiao as everyone expected, he took position beside him, a knowing smile playing across his weathered face. "You always were my most diligent student," the Admiral said to Xiao. "When you requested this assignment, I knew you'd need backup eventually." Pluto's face contorted with rage as the pieces fell into place. "The foreign ally? He was yours all along?" Xiao nodded. "Admiral Acer trained me at the Northwest Compound. He's been my mentor since I was 12 years old. The Key family spent years cultivating what they thought was a powerful foreign connection, never realizing they were actually bringing my strongest ally directly into their inner circle." Throughout the city, the true extent of Xiao's preparations became clear. The junior accounting clerk, who had been monitoring the Port Authority's shipping manifests for months, identifying the underworld's supply routes. The newly appointed assistant to the deputy mayor, documenting every corrupt decision and building a comprehensive case against the administration. The night shift supervisor at Ninghai Central Bank, who had been tracking illegal transactions flowing to underworld accounts. Even more surprising were the direct infiltrations. 3 supposed underworld commanders in Pluto's inner circle had been reporting to Xiao all along. 2 of Key Junction's most trusted advisors were actually Heavenly Strategy operatives placed years before Xiao even arrived in Ninghai. As dawn broke over the city, Ninghai's elites watched in astonishment as the underworld forces that had seemed unstoppable just hours before were now being systematically dismantled. The 3 minor families who had pledged allegiance to Key Junction found themselves surrounded and arrested by forces loyal to Xiao. The sleeper agents throughout the city discovered that their communication networks had been compromised months ago, their messages intercepted, and their movements tracked. What truly shocked Ninghai's power players wasn't just the efficiency of Xiao's countermeasures, but the revelation of his true purpose. As criminal elements were extracted from government positions and corrupted business leaders were publicly exposed, it became clear that Xiao's mission had never been about consolidating power for himself. "I didn't come to Ninghai to rule it," Xiao explained, as he and Pluto circled each other for their final confrontation. "I came to cleanse it. This city has been poisoned from within for too long." Around them, the battle for Ninghai's future raged on. The Song family, now understanding the true scope of Xiao's plans, had mobilized their considerable resources to support his efforts. Song Yinggu personally directed her security teams to protect civilian evacuation routes, demonstrating that her family's commitment to the city went beyond profit margins. Even Changi Chang, who had so publicly rejected her arranged marriage to Xiao, was revealed to be working on his behalf all along. Her family's considerable influence in the financial sector, allowing her to freeze underworld assets at the critical moment. As Xiao and Pluto finally clashed in direct combat, their battle represented more than just two powerful individuals. It was the culmination of two fundamentally different approaches to power. Pluto had spent decades accumulating strength, intimidating enemies, and eliminating opposition. Xiao had spent 18 months building connections, positioning allies, and creating a resilient network that could withstand even the most coordinated attack. "You still don't understand," Xiao said, as he deflected Pluto's increasingly desperate attacks. "The title, Heavenly Strategy, General, isn't about combat prowess or even authority. It's about seeing the entire board when others can only see the pieces directly in front of them." The battle between them intensified, with Pluto unleashing techniques that would have overwhelmed any normal opponent. But Xiao, guided by the wisdom of the United Scroll, moved with precision that seemed to anticipate every strike before it was made. It wasn't just the scroll's power that gave him the advantage, but the fundamental approach to conflict that it had reinforced. Victory is determined long before the battle begins. With a final, decisive movement, Xiao disarmed Pluto, bringing the underworld leader to his knees. Around them, reports continued to flow in of underworld cells being neutralized across the city. The corrupt network that had taken decades to build was being dismantled in a single night. As the dust settled over Ninghai City, a question hung in the air that no one dared speak aloud. Did they just witness the rise of yet another tyrant, or something history had never seen before? The farmer who orchestrated the fall of an empire wasn't celebrating his victory. Instead, he was already planning something that would challenge everything the elites believed about power and those who wield it. Standing atop the Song Tower, Xiao gazed across the skyline of Ninghai at dawn. The city was beginning its slow recovery after a night that had fundamentally altered its power structure. Below him, repair crews worked to restore damaged infrastructure, while emergency vehicles navigated streets that just hours ago had been battlegrounds. But the physical damage would heal far faster than the psychological wounds inflicted on Ninghai's elite families. "They're calling it the Night of Realignment," Song Yinggu said, as she joined him on the observation deck. "Every surviving family is scrambling to determine where they stand in your new world." Xiao's lips curved into a slight smile. "It's not my world they should be concerned about. It's the one they created through generations of corruption." The uncertainty among Ninghai's powerful was palpable. Families that once competed for dominance now operated with extreme caution, unsure if their past transgressions had been documented in Xiao's extensive intelligence network. 3 distinct factions had emerged overnight. Those openly pledging loyalty to Xiao's vision, those quietly repositioning themselves in hopes of remaining relevant, and those planning to resist the new order from the shadows. What surprised everyone wasn't Xiao's victory, but what followed. Rather than establishing himself as Ninghai's new overlord, he immediately began dismantling the very systems that would have granted him absolute power. The Heavenly Strategy Department's resources were deployed not to consolidate authority, but to systematically identify and remove corrupt officials throughout every level of municipal government. "I don't understand," confessed the newly appointed interim mayor during an emergency council meeting. "You have the authority to rule this city outright. Why create these civilian oversight committees?" Xiao's response was simple, yet profound. Power exercised through fear creates nothing but temporary compliance. True governance requires willing participation from those being governed. The Song family found themselves navigating unfamiliar territory. For generations, they had operated as employers of talent and wielders of influence. Now they served as Xiao's most trusted allies, a transition that required significant adjustment, particularly for Song Jianan. "I offered you a partnership when I thought you were merely an extraordinary fighter," the elder Song admitted during a private dinner at the family compound. "Now, I find myself the junior partner to the heavenly strategy general. Fate has a curious sense of humor." What fascinated Ninghai's citizens most was the transformation in the relationship between Xiao and Song Yinggu. What began as a reluctant protection arrangement had blossomed into something far more meaningful, a true partnership based on mutual respect and shared vision. While romance rumors circulated through social media, their actual bond proved more significant than gossip could capture. "I spent 3 years at Harvard learning business strategy," Song Yinggu remarked during a planning session for Ninghai's economic restructuring. "You spent your life learning to see beneath surfaces. Together, we might actually create something lasting." The revelation of Xiao's multiple identities, farmer, Yama, and heavenly strategy general, sparked an explosion of speculation throughout the region. Street vendors sold crude drawings of the three-faced savior, while social media platforms crashed repeatedly under the weight of competing theories about his origins. Children in schoolyards played at being the farmer general, while parents exchanged whispered stories of his improbable rise. "You've become a living legend," Song Yinggu observed as they walked through a market where merchants bowed respectfully as they passed. "Does that bother you?" "Legends serve their purpose," Xiao replied. "People need symbols during times of transformation. The danger comes when symbols believe their own myths." 2 weeks after the battle, Xiao convened a meeting with his inner circle. Representatives from the Song, Chang, and other loyal families gathered in a secure conference room beneath the city's financial district. The mood was somber as Xiao revealed the next phase of his mission. "Ninghai was merely the first city requiring attention," he explained, displaying a map with several locations highlighted across the nation. "Similar corruption networks have taken root in Kansha, Medan, and 3 coastal cities. Our work here has only begun." The announcement that Xiao would temporarily leave Ninghai sent ripples of anxiety through the assembled allies. Without his physical presence, would the fragile new order collapse? Xiao anticipated their concerns and addressed them directly. "Each of you proved your loyalty during our darkest hours," he said, making eye contact with each person in turn. "Now you must prove your capability by continuing what we've started here." He assigned specific responsibilities to those who had demonstrated both loyalty and competence. Song Yinggu would oversee economic restructuring, ensuring that resources previously hoarded by corrupt families would be properly redistributed. Changi Chang, despite her initial rejection of their arranged marriage, had proven her value by freezing underworld assets and would now manage financial oversight committees. Even Hling, the former underworld commander, was given responsibility for security operations against remaining resistance cells. "But how will we maintain unity without your authority?" asked one of the younger family representatives. Xiao's answer revealed his deepest wisdom. "My authority was never what united you. It was the recognition of a common purpose. Remember that purpose when challenges arise." The night before his departure, Xiao stood on the balcony of his temporary quarters, contemplating the city that had transformed him as much as he had transformed it. Song Yinggu joined him, concern evident in her expression. "There are whispers that without you physically present, the old powers will attempt to reassert themselves," she said. "They may try," Xiao acknowledged, "but they will fail to understand what truly happened here. They believe my power came from combat skill, official authority, or even the Zanen scroll. None of those things defeated Pluto and his network." "What did then?" she asked. "The ability to see people for who they truly are, not their titles wealth, or the masks they wear for society. True power comes from understanding both the darkness and light that exist in every person, and knowing which one will ultimately guide their actions when tested. As our story draws to a close, we witness the true essence of power, embodied not in brute force, but in wisdom and service. As Mahatma Gandhi once said, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." This philosophy perfectly captures Xiao's approach throughout his meteoric rise in Ninghai City. Unlike the corrupt elite who sought power for personal gain, Xiao wielded his influence to elevate those around him. The transformation we've witnessed wasn't simply about one man's ascension to power, but rather a masterclass in strategic vision. Like Nelson Mandela, who reshaped an entire nation's power structure from a prison cell to presidency, Xiao demonstrated that true authority stems from understanding the hearts of people, not controlling them through fear. His most powerful weapon was never his combat prowess or official title, but his extraordinary ability to recognize authentic character in a city built on deception. The question lingers in the air of Ninghai. Was this humble farmer's rise to kingmaker a fortunate accident of circumstance? Or was every moment, from that first terrorist encounter to the final restructuring of power, meticulously orchestrated by a mind that saw the entire board while others focused on individual pieces?